Hello everyone again. I hope uh, all are doing well during this difficult times. We still are struggling with the pandemic. We are here today again with you on our Sudan update, and unfortunately, we are here to speak about the continued violent incident in Darfur and in other areas of Sudan, and the failure of the interim government to protect civilians in Sudan, particularly in Darfur, where incident has been intensified in the recent days and months, and still there is no um, clear direction from the interim government of Sudan to protect civilians. And uh, the problem is that everyone was celebrating the change in Sudan. Of course, since has changed from being under a dictator, the genocidal criminal alBashir, to having a new interim government that mixes between military and civilian government. And people were hoping that at the least that some of the top priorities of the people on the ground in Sudan can be fulfilled. Unfortunately, that's not the case. There may be relative stability in Khartoum, in other areas within the center of Sudan. Unfortunately, this is not the case in Darfur or in Nuba Mountains, where people have been displaced from their homes. The people of Darfur have been living in camps for over 17 years, and in the Nuba Mountain for about 12 years now, for about 8 years now, since 9 years since 2011, and the situation unfortunately is deteriorating rapidly, and we've seen a lot of recent outrage being expressed by civilians on the ground in Darfur. But I'd just like to speak about specifically in the recent months, the month of June, there has been more than 15 to 20 attacks against innocent civilians. This range between shooting and killing, beating people, hijacking cars, beating people and injuring them, and sexual violence incidents. And this started from like having the attack in yesterday in West Darfur. There has been repeated attacks, and some of these attacks are by the government forces or either the police responding to protesters, and then the militias. People talking about herders or unknown militias. There is nothing called unknown in Darfur. There is nothing called unknown in Sudan. Those militias are this is like if you can look at the incidents that are reported, this is a systematic attack. It is Arab militias attacking indigenous African people. And I want to take you back to the genocide in Darfur. When it was systematically started, it was systematically orchestrated as a deliberate policy of the government to eliminate and exterminate the indigenous African people in Darfur, and started by the largest tribes of four, Dagawa, and Masali. However, it continues also to affect other indigenous African people, because you cannot separate between the indigenous African, even those who are not specifically targeted, they continue to fall victims to this racist genocidal attack. And it is very important for people to understand the context. While all of this is happening, unfortunately, the interim government of Sudan is misleading the international community. They're saying that the situation is improving, there is security and safety on the ground. But I can challenge you, if there is security and safety on the ground, why would the people of Darfur, nearly 3 million internally displaced persons, and those who are in the refugees camps cannot go home? People cannot go home for very legitimate reasons. And one of them is that the land that has been abandoned by these internally displaced people in camps is currently occupied. Most of it is occupied by the Arab militias that has been brought by the government of Sudan from Central African Republic, from Mali, Niger, and Chad. And the second reason is that these villages where people have been displaced from is completely erased, burned and erased down from the ground. There is nothing for them to return. So there are no conditions that are established which will be conducive for people to go and start their life there. There is also ongoing attack, systematic attack that we are talking about it and prompted this presentation today is that it's still ongoing on the ground in Darfur. And that is why people could not go home, and there is no enabling condition on the ground for people to go home. And I'm really outrageous about the fact that the interim government cannot stop its forces and its militias from attacking people by now. Just recently, when negotiating the authorization of the new UN mission in Sudan, the Prime Minister stated that they do not need civilian protection forces and that they need UN forces under Chapter 6, which will be a political mission that will help them in the process leading up to elections. We are not there yet. How you could do elections when you have millions of people out of their homes? The people of Darfur who have been displaced for over 17 years, 18 years right now, and the people of Nubu Mountain who are still living in caves, they are not safe, including in mid-June, they have been subjected to attack by the rapid support forces and also still people in the Blue Nile. They are not only displaced in Sudan, but there are people who cross the border living in Ethiopia, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Egypt, Jordan, Chad, Central African Republic, Ghana, name it. This conflict affected refugees have scattered everywhere in the world, and as of today, they are living in a very dangerous conditions. Um, Within the context of this COVID-19 crisis. And this is a clear failure from the interim government that they cannot show the basic that there can be relevant security and stability on the ground. Of course, they're talking about negotiating peace. And I wanted to be very clear about this. And everyone listening here, they must be clear about this. When you are negotiating peace, they are negotiating peace with handful individuals who are representing those who are carrying arms. But that has nothing to do with civilians who are living on the ground. There must be safety and security for civilians prioritized before even negotiating peace as a condition of that. By the time they negotiate this peace and finish, agree, there will not be people to bring peace to. So first we need to see that security and safety of the population, and especially those who are vulnerable, still living in the internally displaced camp, it must be prioritized by the interim government. Uh, for example, in the month of June, the first week of June, there has been an attack in Kapkabia town, which is my hometown, whereby farmers were severely beaten and wounded. People protested and they did nothing to either pursue the suspect or the criminals or attackers or either aid the people who have been subjected to this. In the second week of the same month of June, two incidents happened. Two brothers were at their homes. The car was in their house. Hijackers in uniform, armed, they jumped into their house, confiscated all of their cell phones, shot them, and they kidnapped them along with their car, and they took them about 40 to 50 miles away from the city and they threw them there. When people reported this incident to the police, guess what? The police said they cannot pursue the suspect because simply they don't have a police car at that moment. Can you believe that? It is unbelievably ridiculous that you see the this is the situation that the interim government is saying that they are providing protection for civilians and they are capable of doing it. That means if they are articulating this to the government, to the international community, and they are not doing that, means this is a conspiracy against these people who are still suffering on the ground, and that we need to understand, and people must be able to voice this and speak up and expose the interim government of Sudan that they are misleading and misinforming the international community about safety and security of these very people, that they are leaving vulnerable to constant attack. And who's attacking these people? These are the Rapid Support Force and Janjaweed militia, who are having their leaders right now sitting in the Sovereign Council of the interim government of Sudan. So it's not hard to communicate to. Why don't the Prime Minister communicate to his friends that he listened to, and tell them to stop their military from attacking people? Another attack happened in Fata Borno, whereby people peacefully went to communicate with someone who was hijacking their land and starting to dig a well. People were shot and killed, and most of them have been wounded and taken to the hospital. And the tension is still mounting as of today. People have not settled because both sides are the other side is trying to show that they can do this by force, and because of the immunity that has been going on for years. And even now, after we have an interim government that we can call interim government, whereby they have part of it is civilian government, and unfortunately the situation hasn't changed. In central Darfur, in Yertete, there has been repeatedly multiple attacks in the months of May, June. That has prompted a huge sit-in and a protest, whereby people have organized this more than 2 weeks sit-in in front of in the center of the city, calling for the government to provide safety and security and hold those forces accountable. And in the case of Nyertete, the attack is not even coming from unknown people or Janjaweed, it's coming from the government forces, and systematic attacks, including incidents of rape against minors. This is unacceptable, and we must not stay silent in the face of all of this. The people of Darfur deserve life with dignity, deserve the minimum, the basic need that they can be living in safety, while they're still suffering in the internally displaced camp, but they are not even safe. Even in this vulnerability that they have been living, in the suffering, the long suffering that they have lived in, they are still under attack. And people are quiet about the interim government, and we have to be patient. It's too early to judge them, and it is they need some time. No, people, when something involves losing lives, wounding people, putting them to suffer more, these are the already victimized people. These are the victims of the intended genocide in Darfur that was perpetrated by the government of alBashir. You cannot tell the victims, who have been already suffering for so long, now that they can wait more and be patient while they are still dying. No, they cannot be patient, and we must not be patient for the interim government to wait a year from now, or 2 years, or 3 years, to show us that they can do something to end the violence and end the suffering of these people who are under attack, continue to be under attack every day. And that in again in last month in South Kordofan, there's also attack that was perpetrated by the Rapid Support Force. It wasn't by militias, it wasn't by tribes, it was a systematic attack. And this was not the first attack, this was not the second attack. There has been multiple attacks in South Kordofan, continue to be perpetrated by the militias affiliated to the Rapid Support Force. Unfortunately, people right now on the ground will say, oh, well, these are herders. People are afraid. People are so fearful because what you so called them Janjaweed in the past, right now they are no longer Janjaweed. When you call them Rapid Support Force, now they have their leaders in the top of the government in Khartoum. And that the people are afraid of the consequences. That is why people are struggling to find a way to communicate their grievances and communicate their concerns, because of fear of retaliation. If they speak up tomorrow, the government or these militias go and retaliate against it. But these militias are known, and their leaderships are known, and it can be controlled. They have to be controlled. There is no option but to be controlled, and this must be stopped. The attack in Kapkabia, in Fatta Borno, in Nertete, and I would like through this presentation to commend our people in Nertete, who have shown that even though they have been victimized, they can no longer take this demonization anymore. And with with all the risk that involves their life, they continue to stand up for themselves and they stay to sit in and make their voice heard. And I would encourage everyone in Darfur, wherever there is incident like this happen, people have to come together and communicate, and encourage those of you in the diaspora to be vigilant and be able to use your voice to communicate and stand up for your people. This cannot be tolerated anymore. The attack in Kadugli or attack in Kapkabia, Fattaburno, or Nartete, or wherever it is in Darfur, it is not a single incident. These are the well orchestrated, systematic attacks that have been going on for years, that as a result of the deliberate policy of a genocidal campaign against the people of Darfur. However, right now they wanted to change the narrative of the crisis or the conflict. They want to change the narrative, and they make it seem like these are like herders. Herders are the Arab militias, and Arab militias are the Janjaweed who have been promoted into Rapid Support Force. So there is no other way to communicate this that are unknown. There is nothing called unknown. People on the ground know who are the attackers, and these are the people who have been trained, equipped, and supported by the government and given the permission to attack these people. But right now, the pattern of the attacks has changed, but also it has been, in most part, provocative. Like the recent attack in central Darfur, the attack in far south Darfur, the attack in Kapkabi, it always have been provoked. They have been provoked. They come near to a village or a camp, kill someone and throw it away, and they come and it's like, well, you guys killed someone from our people, and you have to bring the killer, or either we can wipe or burn you all alive. And then they start shooting at people. This is not the first. Like in the last 2 months, there has been 5 incidents that provoke by this kind of provocative pattern of attack that they have been using to demonize these people and to justify their attack. Even if you have someone who have been attacked or something happened, you must be able to communicate to the authority. But unfortunately, there's no authority. This is even though alBashir has been removed, his totalitarian regime is still very present, especially in Darfur. Nothing has changed. People are in the camp. The Janjaweed are roaming around, proudly carrying their weapon in the market, on the street, and everywhere. When people try to go far, this is the rainy season. And let me tell you, in Darfur, if people cannot farm, people cannot be alive, because there is no way the government in Khartoum providing or doing anything to resolve the food insecurity issues. People, even though they are living in camps, they are in a vulnerable condition, they try to go to areas that are not far from their internally displaced camp to farm. Like the incident that happened to Mr. Abdin in my home city. This is an innocent man who was working in his farm. Unfortunately, he has been brutally attacked by 8 of these Janjaweed militias and was, he said, I will see you later. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to see his family, and his family, the next time they see him, is see his dead body. This is unbelievably outrageous, and it is unacceptable, and we must not let this go. Something has to happen. The interim government of Sudan is responsible of every single incident happened since they took power and until today. And this is happening why? Because of the continued immunity that is granted and provided by the interim government itself. Look at the situation. President Bashir is wanted by the International Criminal Court. When the interim government was forming their government in the beginning and they're negotiating, they were very outspoken that they are going to surrender the 4 indictees of the ICC, including the ex-president alBashir, to the International Criminal Court. As soon as they took their seat, they completely changed their position, and then they refused that they are not going to surrender any of these suspects, with exception of Ali Kosheib, who went into Central African Republic and get arrested. He was not surrendered actually, but they are trying to make him a hero that he has surrendered to the ICC. But he went into Central African Republic. The Central African Republic police has arrested him, and then they transfer him to the UN forces that in Central Africa, and then he was transferred to the Hague. Regardless, he is a criminal and he must feel his trial. And we are glad that right now he's in the Hague. But what about President al-Bashir? What about Abdurrahim Hussein and Ahmad Harun, who have killed hundreds of thousands of people in Darfur? And also, Ahmad Harun is guilty of the number of people who have been killed in South Kordofan during his tenure when he was appointed as a governor in South Kordofan, and that is why the people of South Kordofan are still living in the internally displaced camps and in the caves, in the mountains right now, because of Ahmad Harun presence in the region, whereby he called and said, kill and wipe them. We do not want anyone. Kill and wipe all of these people. So these are people with this kind of level of crimes. We must tell the interim government and the Prime Minister Hamdok that genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity are not the crimes of serious consequences, and they cannot go unpunished. And he must not promote immunity for such crimes. By doing so, Prime Minister Hamdok and his entire government is denying the victims the right to justice. They are propagating that they are going to try these people in a Sudanese court. That is a joke. There is no way that they can try the suspect in the Sudanese court. First, the Sudanese laws has not included or integrated genocide, war crimes, or crimes against humanity. There is no clear definition of rape in the Sudanese law. There has always been confusion between rape and adultery in the Sudanese law, and also thinking of the victims, people who are the victims who may stand as witness in the trial of this individual. Do you think that when your killers are free, the Janjaweed and the militias and rapid support force, including the two generals who have been the upper hand of al-Bashir in Darfur, who are currently presiding in the interim government sovereign council, do you think it will be safe enough for the witness to come forward for a trial that will be conducted in Sudan? That's impossible to happen. And that's why the only option for the Sudanese victims in Darfur right now is the International Criminal Court. And that must happen, and that will only happen if we continue to demand it and hold the interim government of Sudan accountable to their action. And I do call and I would like to urge you all to call on the ICC and the ICC member state and the UN Security Council member state to hold the interim government of Sudan accountable for covering up and playing delaying tactic by keeping the individuals that are indicted by the International Criminal Court and refusing to surrender them to the ICC. Because if you cover up for the criminal, you are the criminal yourself. Even though they know that they are going to do this, in the interim constitution, they have signed an immunity for the all members of the interim government, that they cannot be held accountable for whatever crimes they do during their time serving as an interim officials. And for that reason, they are still using that immunity to continue to cover up for the past crime and the current crime, which is totally against the law, and we should not leave that without accountability. But this can only happen if those of us who are advocate for the pursuit of justice and accountability, and if we can communicate this to the international community, as well as holding the interim government of Sudan accountable. And I would urge all the people of Sudan who rallied on June 30th, came out to speak, they must prioritize justice. Without accountability for the past crimes, there will not be peace in Sudan. No matter how long they do, and no matter what they do, and what it comes in that peace agreement, without proper justice and accountability, if you can leave al-Bashir with immunity, if al-Bashir can go free, the individual Janjaweed leader who is killing people in Darfur right now will be free as well. And that's why this is a norm that we do not want to see happen, and we must be outspoken and voice our demand and our concern, and and make it clear to the interim government of Sudan that immunity for the crimes of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity is not an option. And it's the recent incident that happened in June 3rd of last year, and this was a clear that was a clear cost of the immunity. Because of the immunity that was granted for alBashir for years, then the rapid support forces, they felt they can walk and do whatever they want to do in the capital in front of the all international diplomatic presence and international media, because they know that if alBashir can go free with immunity, they also can perpetrate this crime to go with immunity. Another reason also the immunity continued to be perpetrated in Sudan, the majority of Sudanese who are silent about the accountability. You have to understand that if there is accountability for crimes committed against the people of Darfur, for sure there will be accountability for crimes committed against the protester at the sit-in area in front of the military barracks on June 3rd of last year. There will be accountability for all the demonstrators who have been killed between December 2018 through today, through this last June 30 when they protested in Khartoum. And even during this recent protest, there has been use of force used by the government, police. These are the law enforcement people who are tasked to protect the people, and people were demonstrating peacefully. And this is what happened in my hometown, Kapkabia, whereby people peacefully protested and marched, and they delivered their memos to the local authorities and to the police, and they were ready to return back while they were marching. In confrontation with protesters, the police start like firing tear gas, and the next thing they do is firing live ammunition against these innocent protesters. They have wounded 8 people, and 2 of them were in serious condition, and among those wounded, 2 of them are children. This is the police that are tasked. What is the interim government do in the face of all of this brutality? Again, in other areas, including in Khartoum, in some areas the protesters were faced with live ammunition and shooting and arrest, including people were concerned that some of their family members went missing during the protest. We're not sure whether they are located right now or not. Some of them have been located in central Khartoum police station, but the rest of them are displaced. We must not tolerate this kind of use of force to happen. People must be able to protest and voice their demand. They have lost nothing left for them to do except for protesting and expressing themselves. And the interim government of Sudan has to understand and must communicate this to their police, to their military, to everyone, and to all the authority that they must end this violence against civilians in Darfur and across the Sudan. This is not the first violent attack, and this is not it's not going to be the last. But accountability has to be prioritized. Our We would like to urge all of you to speak up and expose the failure of the interim government of Sudan to provide the minimum bar of safety and security of the citizens in Sudan, including those who are the most vulnerable, continue to live in the internally displaced camp. If they cannot provide safety and security, do not expect them to provide nothing for the people of Sudan. And they recently are bragging and propagating that they are finally welcome to the international forest, and that is a great step. But this support has to come with accountability, and we are not going to keep quiet and let them be welcome to the international forum without having the international community hold them accountable. I also urge you all to speak up to your entire government. If you are in Europe, if you are in Africa, if you are in the Middle East, if you are in the United States, first, the United States government has to condition whatever support that they are going to give to the interim government of Sudan with clear accountability mechanism. And on top of that, the top priority must be given to protection of civilians, safety and security of the internally displaced and refugees, and also for innocent civilians and ordinary citizens for their rights to protest peacefully without being faced by the police or the use of force against them. Otherwise, if there cannot be security and safety of the people in Sudan, nothing else can be provided. And that Sudan will never be transformed without accountability and creating conditions that would be enabling for the transformation of Sudan. This is a clear failure of the interim government of Sudan that we must not let it go without accountability, and we must speak up and make it clear for the interim government that uh, allowing your militias to kill people, allowing your police to use the force against the people of Sudan is unacceptable, and it has to be held. They have to be held responsible, including the top leaders of the interim government. Because when you are commander in chief of the country, when you are the prime minister of the country, you are responsible of every single individual killed or every single woman raped in that country. Do not think that this is not your responsibility. It is your responsibility. And we have to tell them this is their responsibility. They can only care when we start making this their own responsibility and make it clear, and make also people within the Sudan and out of Sudan understand that this is the responsibility of the interim government. If it is not, if we are not making it a responsibility for the interim government, they are not going to act or take any effective action to end the attack against civilians in Darfur or anywhere in Sudan. There has been attacks in Port Sudan. There has been fighting that created since the existence of the former regime, and there has been problems in the Ethiopian Sudan borders. There has been problems in the Sudanese Chadian borders. All of this problem has to stop. These militaries that are roaming everywhere, randomly killing people in their cities, in their residence, in their villages, they must be taken to the border to protect the borders of Sudan, and they must be trained and told that they are here to protect the Sudan, not to attack the people of Sudan. We also call for the interim government that police forces must be created from within the community. Community policing, people who know the people, who have the people trust them, who are there to serve the interests of the people. You cannot use the police who was there killing the people during the alBashir regime, and now you can be able to turn them into or shift them and have them shift their mindset from killing people. These are people who have been taught and trained to kill individual citizens during the last 30 years. So there is a lot of reforms need to take place, and that needs to take place immediately because this reforms is necessary and urgent for safety and protection of people's lives. Otherwise, we will continue to see this happen, and we must not let this happen. We must not stand idly by and let this continue to happen. I would like to also urge you to call on the United States. And we have learned that in the last donor conference, the United States government has pledged the highest contribution to Sudan, which is great. However, the United States must not give the interim government of Sudan any support without accountability. We need to see alBashir and the other ICC indictees being surrendered to face trial. We must see that there will not be any Janjaweed militia attacking people, and that clear reform need to take place whereby we have new army, new police that understand that they are there to enforce the law, but they are not there to use the force to kill the people. And we must also hold the United States government accountable if they are going to promote this kind of gross human rights violation in Sudan without holding Sudan government accountable. Um, it is really unacceptable, and it is really outrageous for us to, for years, people have cried for peace and justice, to see their fate and their concern being ignored and their suffering continue to be prolonged like this. And even now, under this interim government, this is not acceptable, and we must not let it go, and we must speak up and hold the interim government of Sudan accountable. So, with this last statement, I would like to conclude my English presentation. We will shift into Arabic presentation, but before we do so, I would like to encourage you to send in your questions if you have any. I will be more than happy to answer your questions before we can move into starting the Arabic Live. And what we do to make sure that we don't make this video longer for people who want to view only the English segment of our presentation, we will stop the video after we answer your questions, and then we'll resume again to speak to you in Arabic. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you. If you do not have any questions, I would like to thank you again for tuning in and joining us in this presentation. I look forward to continue the conversation, and please know that we will do this Sudan update, weekly update every Thursday, and we'll definitely be happy to receive your suggestions and your comments about what kind of topic you want us to do. But I would also like to see if you have any topics in mind that will be useful, you want us to talk about it, any suggestions about the way we do this presentation, we'll definitely appreciate that. Um, I also want to announce that next week is going to be uh, July 17th is the International Justice Day, and July 12th is the 10th anniversary of the ICC indictment of President al-Bashir of Sudan. So on July 12th, for those of you who are here in the United States and in the DC area, we will have a vigil in front of the Sudanese embassy to mark the 10th anniversary, and also to launch our International Justice Day or International Justice Week campaign. And I will appreciate if those of you who are in the area can join us watching a while. Please do not forget to bring your mask with you, and also social distancing. Bring your sign with you so that we minimize any getting closer or touching stuff that is not your own. So we'll do our best trying to be mindful with the continued pandemic of the COVID-19 crisis, and make sure that we protect the people. And that's why we are going to use all the precautions to protect the people, and make sure that we can do it safely. But we cannot let this day go without marking it. And for those of you who are not with us here, we would love to see, we will have a week of International Justice Week between July 12th and July 17th. If you support accountability for the crimes committed in Darfur, you can record a video and send it to us. You can also have a sign or a piece of paper that has "I stand for justice and accountability in Darfur or in Sudan," or any message that you want to convey to the Sudan's Prime Minister. You can take a picture of yourself and send it. We will post it and share it around. And also, please help us to share the information about our campaign, and also your participation. We will continue to provide you opportunities for actions. We will be tweeting, we'll be doing presentation and maybe a panel discussion on the International Justice Day or a day before. We will keep you posted on that. Thank you again for your interest in this, and I look forward to be with you again. I will turn the page for our English, for our Arabic presentation, and I will be back with you soon for those who are interested in our Arabic presentation. Thank you.